My name is Evelyn Morrow. I am 74 years old. And the day my daughter's husband raised his voice at me in my own kitchen was the day my kindness finally ran out. Before I go any further, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss stories like this. And tell me in the comments which country you're watching from so I know who is listening with me today. Because what my daughter and her husband did after taking everything I gave them, and what happened when I stopped being soft, is something they never expected. I was washing dishes when it happened. My hands were wet. The water was hot. And my back was already aching from a long day. I had cooked dinner for everyone, again. Cleaned the house, again. Watched the children, again. And I didn't complain. Because that's who I had always been. Helpful. Kind. Available. Too available. You're moving too slow, my son-in-law said sharply. I turned to look at him. What did you say? I asked. He didn't look at me. He was scrolling on his phone. I said you're taking too long, he repeated. The kids need baths. Something in my chest tightened. I've been on my feet all day, I replied calmly. I'll get to it. He laughed. That's always your excuse. I felt my daughter freeze behind him. She said nothing. And that silence hurt more than his words. You see, they lived in my house. Not visiting. Living. They came for a few weeks, after money got tight. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I paid the bills. Bought the groceries. Woke up early with the kids. Went to bed last. And every time I tried to speak up, I told myself they're family. Be patient. That patience turned into permission. That night, after the children were asleep, I finally said something. We need to talk, I told my daughter quietly. She sighed like I was a problem she didn't have time for. What now, Mom? That tone cut deep. I'm tired, I said, and this isn't working anymore. Her husband scoffed. You act like you're doing us a favor, he said. I stared at him. I am, I replied. He leaned back in his chair. Well, nobody asked you to be a hero. That was the moment. The exact moment. When I realized my kindness had been turned into expectation. And my love had been mistaken for weakness. My daughter finally spoke. You don't have to make everything difficult, she said. Difficult. I laughed softly. I gave you my home, I said. I raised your children while you rested, and now I'm difficult. She rolled her eyes. You always want appreciation, she muttered. That broke something inside me. Because I wasn't asking to be praised. I was asking to be respected. Later that night, I lay awake listening to the house. Their footsteps. Their laughter. Their comfort. All built on my sacrifice. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question I had been avoiding for years. When did helping become being used? And another question followed quickly behind it. What would happen if I stopped being kind? The answer came sooner than I expected. The very next morning, I overheard a conversation that made my hands shake. My daughter whispered to her husband in the hallway. She won't do anything, she said. She needs us. That sentence landed like a slap. Needs us. I stood there unseen, unheard. And in that moment, I realized they didn't just take advantage of my kindness. They depended on it. And when I finally stood tall, they would be afraid of what they created. Because the woman they thought was weak was about to show them her strength. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I did not sleep that night. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of my own house. The refrigerator hummed softly. A floorboard creaked when someone walked to the bathroom. Somewhere down the hall, my grandson coughed in his sleep. This was my home. And yet, I felt like a guest who had stayed too long. The words I overheard kept playing in my mind. She won't do anything. She needs us. Needs us. I had given birth to my daughter, raised her with my own hands, worked long hours so she could eat, learn, dream. And now she believed I needed her. That hurt in a way I didn't have words for. When morning came, I got up before everyone else. That had always been my habit. Wake early, move quietly, make life easier for others before they even open their eyes. But that morning, something was different. I didn't rush. I stood at the kitchen window with my hands wrapped around a cup of tea and watched the sun rise slowly. The light touched the walls I had painted years ago. The floor I had scrubbed so many times my knees still remembered it. I whispered to myself, "You are still here." The children woke first. They ran into the kitchen like always, laughing and asking for breakfast. I smiled at them because none of this was their fault. "Grandma, can we have pancakes?" my granddaughter asked. "Yes," I said gently. "Sit down." I made breakfast like I always did. But this time I watched. I watched how they expected it. How no one said thank you. How it was just there. Like my kindness had become part of the furniture. My daughter and her husband came into the kitchen late. He grabbed a plate without looking at me. She poured herself coffee. No greeting. No smile. Just comfort. Built on my effort. I placed the last pancake on the table and sat down. "I want to talk today," I said calmly. My daughter sighed loudly. "About what now?" "About this living situation," I replied. Her husband chuckled under his breath. "Here we go again." I looked at him directly. "Do not speak to me like that," I said. The room went quiet. He raised his eyebrows. "Like what?" "Like I am invisible," I replied. My daughter jumped in. "Mom, why do you always turn everything into a fight?" I felt something tighten in my chest. "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm speaking." She shook her head. "You're always emotional." That word again. Emotional. The word people use when they don't want to listen. After breakfast, they left for work and school. The house was quiet again. I cleaned slowly, thinking carefully. I realized something important then. I had been waiting for permission to matter. And permission never comes when people benefit from your silence. That afternoon, my sister called. "You sound tired," she said. "I am," I replied, "but not the way you think." I told her everything. She listened quietly. "They're using you," she said finally. I nodded. "I know." "So what are you going to do?" she asked. I paused. "I don't know yet," I said, "but I know I can't keep doing this." She sighed. "They won't like it." I laughed softly. "They already don't respect me." That evening, my son-in-law came home angry. I could feel it before he even spoke. "What's for dinner?" he asked sharply. "I haven't cooked yet," I replied. He stared at me. "What do you mean you haven't cooked?" "I mean," I said calmly, "I'm tired." He scoffed. "Tired of what? You're home all day." That sentence landed hard. I looked at him slowly. "This is my house," I said, "and you will not speak to me like that." He stepped closer. "You're getting bold lately," he said. I didn't move. "I'm getting honest," I replied. My daughter rushed in. "Please stop," she said. "The kids can hear." I looked at her. "They hear everything," I replied. "They just watch us pretend they don't." That night, the argument grew louder. Not shouting. Sharp words. Cold looks. Heavy silence. My daughter pulled me aside later. "You're making him uncomfortable," she whispered. I stared at her. "He's living in my house," I said. "Why is his comfort more important than my dignity?" She didn't answer. I went to bed early again. But sleep still didn't come. Instead, memories came. Times I had lent money without asking questions. Times I babysat so they could rest. Times I swallowed words to keep peace. I finally admitted something painful. My kindness had trained them to expect, to demand, to dismiss. And untraining people is never easy. The next day, something small happened. But small things often matter most. I made myself lunch. Only for myself. When my son-in-law walked in and saw no food prepared, he frowned. "You didn't cook?" he asked. "No," I replied. "So what are we supposed to eat?" I looked at him calmly. "Whatever you make," I said. His eyes widened. My daughter stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "You're serious?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. That was the first time I saw fear cross her face. Because my kindness had always covered them. And now, it was stepping back. That night, I overheard another conversation. This time, it wasn't whispers. It was panic. "What if she really stops helping?" my daughter asked. Her husband scoffed. "She won't last," he said. "She always comes around." I closed my eyes. Because that was when I understood the truth fully. They weren't afraid of losing my kindness. They were afraid of losing control. And the moment I decided to stop bending, everything in this house would change. Because strength doesn't shout. It simply stops agreeing to be small. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I woke up the next morning with a strange feeling in my chest. Not fear. Not anger. Clarity. It was the kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop arguing with yourself. I lay in bed for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the house waking up. The kids' footsteps running down the hallway, the television turning on, the kettle clicking off. For years, that sound meant duty. That morning, it meant choice. I got up slowly and dressed myself carefully. Nothing special, just clean clothes that made me feel like myself. I looked in the mirror longer than usual. "You are not wrong," I said out loud. "You are not selfish. You are not weak." Hearing my own voice made my shoulders straighten. In the kitchen, my daughter was already there, scrolling on her phone. "Morning," she said without looking up. "Good morning," I replied. She glanced at the counter. "No breakfast?" she asked. "I ate earlier," I said. She frowned. "The kids haven't eaten." I nodded. "You can make something." Her fingers stopped moving. "Mom," she said slowly, "what's going on with you?" I looked at her. "I'm tired of pretending this is normal," I replied. She sighed loudly. "Here we go again." "No," I said calmly. "This time we're already here." She stood up straight. "You're acting different." "Yes," I replied, "because I am different." Her husband walked in then. He took one look at the quiet kitchen and scowled. "What's the problem now?" he asked. I turned toward him. "There is no problem," I said. "There is a change." He laughed. "You don't get to change how things work." I met his eyes. "This is my house," I said slowly. "I do." The air shifted. My daughter looked nervous. "Mom, please," she said. "Let's not start." "I didn't start anything," I replied. "I stopped something." He stepped closer to me. "You think you have power now?" he asked. I didn't raise my voice. "I always did," I said. "I just didn't use it." The kids walked in then. They felt the tension right away. "Is everything okay?" my granddaughter asked. "Yes," I said gently. "Everything is okay." But my daughter's husband rolled his eyes. "Adults are talking," he muttered. That was the moment. The exact moment. I turned toward him fully. "Do not speak like that in my home," I said firmly. My daughter gasped. He stared at me, shocked. "You can't talk to me like that," he snapped. "I can," I replied, "and I will." The children stood frozen. My voice stayed calm. And you will not teach them that disrespect is normal, I added. Silence filled the room. My daughter looked between us, panic in her eyes. After they left for school and work, I sat alone at the table. My hands were steady. My heart was loud. I knew what had just happened. The balance had shifted. And when balance shifts, people either adjust or push back harder. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was my daughter. Mom, she said quickly, we need to talk. We've been talking, I replied. No, she said, I mean really talk. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Come home, I said. She hesitated. Is he there? No, I replied. It's just me. She came an hour later. She didn't sit down at first. I don't know what's gotten into you, she said. I found myself, I replied. She rubbed her temples. You're making things tense. They were tense before, I said. I was just absorbing it. She looked at me with frustration. You're acting like we're bad people. I'm acting like I'm a person too, I replied. She sighed. We needed your help. And you took my silence as permission, I said. She shook her head. That's not fair. I leaned forward. What's not fair, I said softly, is being used and told to be grateful. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't think you felt like this, she whispered. That's because you didn't ask, I replied. That evening, her husband didn't come home for dinner. The kids ate quietly. My granddaughter leaned close to me. Grandma, she whispered, are we in trouble? I hugged her gently. No, I said, grown-ups are learning. She nodded slowly. Later that night, my son-in-law came home late. He didn't speak to me, but I heard him talking to my daughter behind their door. She's turning against us, he said. I closed my eyes. Turning against us. Imagine that. Standing up for myself felt like betrayal to them. Before bed, my phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. He says if you keep acting like this, we'll have to make other arrangements. My stomach tightened. Other arrangements. That sentence carried threat. Not spoken out loud, but felt clearly. I stared at the screen. For years, I had been afraid of being alone. Now, I realized something powerful. I had already been alone. Just surrounded. I typed one sentence back. We will talk tomorrow. I put the phone down and turned off the light. Because tomorrow, they would test my strength, and whether they feared it or not. I was done being kind at the cost of myself. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. That night, I slept lightly. Not because I was afraid, but because I was awake in a new way. Every sound in the house felt sharper. Every thought felt clearer. I was no longer moving on habit. I was moving on purpose. When morning came, I got up early again. I did not rush. I did not tiptoe. I moved like someone who belonged. The children woke up first. They sat at the table quietly, watching me. Grandma, my grandson asked, are you mad at Mommy? I knelt down so we were eye level. No, I said gently, I'm just being honest. He thought about that. Is honest bad? He asked. I smiled sadly. No, I said, honest is how things get better. My daughter came into the kitchen next. She looked tired. Her eyes were red. She poured coffee and leaned against the counter. We need to talk about last night, she said. Yes, I replied, we do. She sighed. He feels like you're pushing him out. I looked at her calmly. I am not pushing anyone out, I said. I'm standing up. She shook her head. You don't understand how this affects him. I met her eyes. You don't understand how it's been affecting me, I replied. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her husband came in a few minutes later. The air changed immediately. He didn't look at me. Morning, he muttered. Good morning, I replied. He grabbed a mug and filled it loudly. So, he said finally, are we doing this today? Doing what? I asked. Pretending everything's fine, he replied sarcastically. I folded my hands on the table. We don't have to pretend, I said. We can talk. He laughed sharply. You always want to talk when things don't go your way. I stood up slowly. This has been going your way for years, I said, at my expense. My daughter stepped between us. Please, she said, the kids. They're watching anyway, I replied. They always are. He crossed his arms. So what do you want? He asked. That question mattered, because I finally knew the answer. I want respect, I said. He scoffed. You live alone, he said. You'd be lonely without us. I felt a sting. Then calm. Lonely, I said softly, is being used and unseen. My daughter's face fell. He shook his head. This is ridiculous. No, I replied. This is overdue. The argument didn't explode. It tightened, like a rope pulled from both ends. My daughter looked trapped between us. I never meant for this to happen, she whispered. I know, I replied, but meaning doesn't undo damage. Her husband sighed. So what now? He asked. I took a breath. Now, I said, we reset how this house works. He laughed. You think you're in charge. I looked around slowly. At the walls I paid for. The roof I maintained. The home I protected. Yes, I said simply, I am. Silence followed. That afternoon, they left the house together. No goodbye. No explanation. The kids hugged me before they left. My granddaughter whispered, I don't like when everyone's mad. I held her tight. I know, I said, neither do I. When the door closed, I stood alone in the living room. My heart beat fast, but my hands were steady. Hours passed. The house stayed quiet. Too quiet. Then my phone rang. It was my daughter. Her voice was shaky. He's saying we should move out, she said. I closed my eyes. That's his choice, I replied. He says you're changing, she continued. Yes, I said, I am. She cried. We don't have anywhere else to go, she said. I leaned against the counter. You should have thought about that before calling me weak, I replied softly. She didn't answer. That evening, they came back. But not together. My daughter came first. She looked scared. He's serious, she said. He says if things don't go back to how they were, we're leaving. I looked at her carefully. And how were they? I asked. She hesitated. I waited. Easy, she whispered. Easy for who? That answer hung in the air. A knock came at the door. Her husband had returned. He stood there stiffly. We need to decide, he said. Tonight. I felt something settle deep inside me. This was the test. The moment where strength either bends or holds. I looked at both of them. You are welcome here, I said slowly, but not on the old terms. He narrowed his eyes. And if we don't agree, he asked. I took a deep breath. Then you will have to find somewhere else to live, I said. My daughter gasped. He stared at me, shocked. You wouldn't do that, he said. I didn't raise my voice. I already am, I replied. The room went silent. Because for the first time, they understood. My kindness had limits, and my strength was no longer hidden. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. After I said the words out loud, the house felt different. Not louder. Not quieter. Heavier. My daughter stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Her husband didn't blink at all. He just stood there, arms crossed, like he was waiting for me to take it back. You're serious, he said. Yes, I replied. My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. "You'd really throw us out?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. "No, I'm telling you the rules of living in my home." He laughed once, sharp and short. "You think you can scare us?" I looked at him. "I'm not trying to scare you," I said. "I'm trying to save myself." My daughter covered her mouth with her hand. "Mom, please," she whispered. "We can fix this." I nodded. "Yes, we can." Her husband scoffed. "You always take her side." I turned to him calmly. "I take my own side now," I said. That made him step back. The argument didn't explode. It dragged. Slow words. Hard looks. Long pauses where no one knew what to say next. Finally, my daughter sat down heavily on the couch. "We don't have money saved," she admitted. "We can't just leave." I nodded. "Then you'll have to adjust." Her husband shook his head. "This is crazy." "No," I replied. "Crazy is letting disrespect live rent-free." He stared at me like I had slapped him. "You've been planning this," he accused. I shook my head. "I've been surviving this," I said. That night, no one cooked. Everyone picked at leftovers. The children sensed something was wrong. They spoke softly. They stayed close to me. When bedtime came, my granddaughter hugged me tight. "Are we moving?" she asked quietly. I swallowed. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. She nodded. "I don't want to go," she whispered. My heart cracked. "I know," I said, "but sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices." She pressed her face into my shoulder. I stayed with her until she fell asleep. Later, I heard my daughter and her husband arguing behind their closed door. Low voices. Sharp whispers. Anger wrapped in fear. "She's serious," my daughter said. "She's bluffing," he replied. "I don't think she is," she said. That made him quiet. I sat in my room listening, not spying, just existing. This was the cost of strength. When you stop bending, everything around you has to rearrange. The next morning, my daughter came into my room. Her eyes were swollen. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said. I sat up slowly. "I tried to tell you," I replied. She nodded. "I thought you'd always be okay." That sentence stayed with me. "I wasn't," I said gently. "I just didn't show it." She cried then. Real crying. "I don't want to lose you," she said. I reached for her hand. "You won't," I replied. "But you can't keep losing yourself to keep him comfortable." She flinched. "He's my husband," she said. "And I'm your mother," I replied. "And this is my life." She nodded slowly. That afternoon, her husband didn't come home. No call. No message. The house felt tense. By evening, my daughter was packing. "He's not answering," she said. I stayed calm. "You can't control his choices," I replied. She snapped, "But you caused this." I didn't react. "I revealed this," I said. "There's a difference." She stared at me. Late that night, the front door slammed. He was back, angrier than before. "So you're really doing this," he said. "Yes," I replied. "You're choosing to destroy this family," he shouted. I stood up slowly. "No," I said. "I'm refusing to be destroyed for it." The children woke up crying. My daughter shouted for him to lower his voice. He pointed at me. "She turned you against me." I stepped between him and the children. "Do not speak like that in front of them," I said firmly. He laughed bitterly. "You think you're strong now." I met his eyes. "I always was," I said. "You just benefited from me pretending otherwise." The room went silent. He grabbed his jacket. "This isn't over," he said. I nodded. "I know." He walked out. Hard. The door shook. My daughter collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. "What have we done?" she cried. I sat beside her. "We stopped lying," I said. That night, I barely slept again. But not because I was afraid. Because I knew what was coming next. When people lose control, they look for ways to take it back. And I could feel it. Something bigger was coming. Something that would test whether my daughter truly understood my strength. Or whether she would fear it too. After I said the words out loud, the house felt different. Not louder. Not quieter. Heavier. My daughter stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Her husband didn't blink at all. He just stood there, arms crossed, like he was waiting for me to take it back. "You're serious," he said. "Yes," I replied. My voice didn't shake. That surprised even me. "You'd really throw us out?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. "No, I'm telling you the rules of living in my home." He laughed once, sharp and short. "You think you can scare us?" I looked at him. "I'm not trying to scare you," I said. "I'm trying to save myself." My daughter covered her mouth with her hand. "Mom, please," she whispered. "We can fix this." I nodded. "Yes, we can." Her husband scoffed. "You always take her side." I turned to him calmly. "I take my own side now," I said. That made him step back. The argument didn't explode. It dragged. Slow words. Hard looks. Long pauses where no one knew what to say next. Finally, my daughter sat down heavily on the couch. "We don't have money saved," she admitted. "We can't just leave." I nodded. "Then you'll have to adjust." Her husband shook his head. "This is crazy." "No," I replied. "Crazy is letting disrespect live rent-free." He stared at me like I had slapped him. "You've been planning this," he accused. I shook my head. "I've been surviving this," I said. That night, no one cooked. Everyone picked at leftovers. The children sensed something was wrong. They spoke softly. They stayed close to me. When bedtime came, my granddaughter hugged me tight. "Are we moving?" she asked quietly. I swallowed. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. She nodded. "I don't want to go," she whispered. My heart cracked. "I know," I said, "but sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices." She pressed her face into my shoulder. I stayed with her until she fell asleep. Later, I heard my daughter and her husband arguing behind their closed door. Low voices. Sharp whispers. Anger wrapped in fear. "She's serious," my daughter said. "She's bluffing," he replied. "I don't think she is," she said. That made him quiet. I sat in my room listening, not spying, just existing. This was the cost of strength. When you stop bending, everything around you has to rearrange. The next morning, my daughter came into my room. Her eyes were swollen. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said. I sat up slowly. "I tried to tell you," I replied. She nodded. "I thought you'd always be okay." That sentence stayed with me. "I wasn't," I said gently. "I just didn't show it." She cried then. Real crying. "I don't want to lose you," she said. I reached for her hand. "You won't," I replied. "But you can't keep losing yourself to keep him comfortable." She flinched. "He's my husband," she said. "And I'm your mother," I replied. "And this is my life." She nodded slowly. That afternoon, her husband didn't come home. No call. No message. The house felt tense. By evening, my daughter was packing. "He's not answering," she said. I stayed calm. "You can't control his choices," I replied. She snapped, "But you caused this." I didn't react. "I revealed this," I said. "There's a difference." She stared at me. Late that night, the front door slammed. He was back, angrier than before. "So you're really doing this," he said. "Yes," I replied. "You're choosing to destroy this family," he shouted. I stood up slowly. "No," I said. "I'm refusing to be destroyed for it." The children woke up crying. My daughter shouted for him to lower his voice. He pointed at me. She turned you against me. I stepped between him and the children. Do not speak like that in front of them, I said firmly. He laughed bitterly. You think you're strong now? I met his eyes. I always was, I said. You just benefited from me pretending otherwise. The room went silent. He grabbed his jacket. This isn't over, he said. I nodded. I know. He walked out. Hard. The door shook. My daughter collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. What have we done? She cried. I sat beside her. We stopped lying, I said. That night, I barely slept again. But not because I was afraid. Because I knew what was coming next. When people lose control, they look for ways to take it back. And I could feel it. Something bigger was coming. Something that would test whether my daughter truly understood my strength. Or whether she would fear it too. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The night after he left with his mother, the house did not feel peaceful. It felt watched. Not by eyes. By tension. I locked the doors like I always did, but this time my hands lingered on the locks longer than usual. My daughter noticed. You think he'll come back? She asked quietly. I don't know, I replied honestly. That answer scared her more than yes or no. The next morning, I woke up to whispers. My daughter was on the phone in the hallway, her voice low and shaking. He's telling people lies, she said. No, that's not what happened. I swear. I stood still, listening. She was defending me. That was new. When she hung up and saw me, her eyes filled with tears. They think I'm choosing you over my marriage, she said. I sighed softly. No, I said. They think you're choosing truth over comfort. She sat down heavily. He's telling everyone you kicked us out, she whispered. That you're bitter. That you're trying to control me. I nodded slowly. That's what fear sounds like, I said. By midday, the calls came again. This time, from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Is everything okay? I heard you were acting strange. Someone said you're not well. I felt something cold slide through my chest. That word. Not well. I had heard it before. When people want to take your voice, they question your mind. I looked at my daughter. He's trying to make me look unstable, I said calmly. Her face went pale. Can he do that? She asked. Yes, I replied, if we let him. That afternoon, a woman from church stopped by. She didn't come in. She stood at the door with her purse tight against her chest. I just wanted to check on you, she said slowly. People are worried. About what? I asked. She hesitated. They say you're having trouble adjusting. I smiled gently. Tell them I'm adjusting just fine, I said. She nodded, unsure, and left quickly. When the door closed, my daughter looked at me in panic. He's turning everyone against you, she said. I shook my head. No, I replied. He's revealing himself. That evening, my son-in-law came back. Not angry. Not shouting. Calm. Too calm. He stood in the doorway like a guest. I just want to see my kids, he said. My daughter stiffened. You can see them, she replied, but you can't talk like before. He smiled thinly. I don't know what you mean. I stepped forward. You know exactly what she means, I said. He looked at me slowly. This is between me and my wife, he said. And my house, I replied, and my grandchildren. He laughed softly. You really think you're in charge here? I met his eyes. I don't think, I said. I know. The children came into the room then. They sensed something again. Daddy, my granddaughter said carefully. He knelt down and opened his arms. She hesitated, then went to him. That hurt. but I understood. Love is complicated when you're little. He hugged them tightly. Too tightly. Then he stood. "I'll be back," he said to them. Then to my daughter, "We'll talk later." He glanced at me. "This isn't finished," he said. I nodded. "No," I replied. "It's just uncovered." He left. Again. Afterward, my daughter collapsed into tears. "I don't know who he is anymore," she cried. I held her. "You're seeing him clearly," I said. "That hurts." She pulled away and looked at me. "What if he tries to take the kids?" she whispered. That question stopped my breath. "What makes you think that?" I asked. She swallowed. "He said something earlier," she admitted. "That if I don't come back to my senses, he'll make sure they're safe." Safe. That word again. Fear wrapped in concern. I closed my eyes. He was escalating. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat at the kitchen table with my notebook open, writing down dates, conversations, exact words. Not because I wanted a fight, but because I refused to be erased. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message. From him. "You should talk some sense into your daughter before this goes too far." I stared at the screen, then typed one sentence. "You don't get to threaten us." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. In the morning, my daughter came into the kitchen pale. "I got a call," she said. "From who?" I asked. She hesitated. "A lawyer," she whispered. My heart dropped. "He's saying he's concerned about the kids' living situation," she continued. "And about you." I leaned back slowly. "About me how?" I asked. She looked at me with fear. "He says you're controlling. That you're unstable. That you're influencing me." I closed my eyes. The room felt smaller. Not because I was afraid. Because now I understood. He wasn't just afraid of my strength. He wanted to punish it. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. When my daughter told me about the lawyer, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not panic. Focus. Because when people bring in outsiders to speak for them, it means they don't trust their own story to stand on its own. "He's saying you're unstable," my daughter whispered. "That you control everything." I took a deep breath. "Sit down," I said gently. She obeyed without thinking. That told me how shaken she was. I walked to the cabinet and took out my notebook, the one I had started writing in during the quiet nights. I placed it on the table between us. "This," I said, tapping the cover, "is why I started writing things down." She looked confused. "Dates," I continued. "Words, moments, not feelings, facts." I opened the notebook and showed her. Pages filled with neat writing. Times, conversations, who said what, who was present, what happened before and after. Her eyes widened. "You've been keeping track?" she asked. "Yes," I replied, "because when people try to erase you, details matter." She swallowed hard. "He said you deny everything," she whispered. I nodded. Of course he did. That afternoon, we went about our day as normally as possible. The children played quietly. I cooked lunch. My daughter tried to smile, but her hands shook every time her phone buzzed. Midway through the afternoon, there was a knock at the door. My heart skipped. I looked at my daughter. She nodded. "I'll get it," I said. When I opened the door, it wasn't him. It was a woman. Middle-aged, well-dressed, polite smile. "Mrs. Morrow?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "I'm here to check in," she said carefully. "Just a quick conversation." Check in. That phrase always comes before pressure. "Come in," I said. She stepped inside and glanced around, her eyes moving slowly over the room. The clean floors, the family photos, the children's drawings on the fridge. I'm Marion, she said. I was asked to make sure everyone here is okay. By whom? I asked. She hesitated. A concerned family member. I nodded. Sit, I said. She asked simple questions at first. How long have you lived here? All my life. Who owns the home? I do. Who lives here with you? My daughter and her children. And her husband, she asked. He is not here, I replied. She nodded slowly and wrote something down. Then her questions changed. Have there been disagreements recently? Yes. Do you feel overwhelmed? No. Do you feel pressured by anyone? Yes. She looked up. Who? My son-in-law, I replied. My daughter gasped softly. The woman's pen paused. Can you explain? She asked. I didn't rush. He raised his voice in my home, I said. He dismissed me. He benefited from my kindness and mistook it for control. The woman nodded slowly. And how do you feel now? She asked. Clear, I replied. My daughter spoke then. She's not controlling, she said quickly. She's been holding everything together. The woman looked at her. Do you feel controlled? She asked. My daughter shook her head. No, she said. I feel supported. The woman wrote again. Then she closed her notebook. Thank you, she said. That's all I needed. She stood and turned toward the door. I'll be in touch, she added. After she left, my daughter collapsed onto the couch. I'm scared, she admitted. I sat beside her. I know, I said, but fear doesn't mean you're wrong. That evening, my phone rang. It was my son-in-law. I answered. You enjoying this? He asked coldly. No, I replied, but I'm not hiding. He laughed. You think one visit changes anything? He sneered. I think truth travels slower than lies, I said calmly, but it lasts longer. He went quiet. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. You should tell your daughter to be careful, he said. People might start asking questions about you. My hands clenched. Is that a threat? I asked. He didn't answer. He hung up. That night, my daughter cried herself to sleep. I sat at the edge of her bed like I used to when she was little, rubbing her back slowly. I didn't know standing up would cost this much, she whispered. It always does, I replied softly, but staying silent costs more. She nodded. The next morning, another call came. This time, it wasn't from him. It was from a school administrator. We've been contacted, the woman said, with concerns about the children. My heart dropped. What kind of concerns? I asked. She hesitated. They're saying the home environment may not be stable. I closed my eyes. He had crossed another line. We'd like to meet, she continued. I took a breath. Of course, I replied. We have nothing to hide. When I hung up, my daughter looked at me with fear in her eyes. He's going after the kids, she whispered. I held her face in my hands. No, I said firmly. He's exposing himself. But even as I said it, I knew. This was no longer just about respect. It was about protection. And the next decision we made would change everything. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. When the school called about concerns, my daughter looked like the ground had dropped beneath her feet. He's really doing this, she whispered. He's really trying to take them. I held her hands firmly. Listen to me, I said. Fear makes people rush. We will not rush. She nodded, but her eyes were wild. I don't want to lose my children, she said. You won't, I replied, but you have to stay clear. The meeting at the school was set for the next day. That night, I gathered everything. My notebook, the children's schedules, medical records, school notes, photos on my phone. Not because I planned to fight, but because I planned to be heard. I sat at the table late into the night, writing down memories while they were still sharp. Who picked the kids up? Who cooked? Who calmed nightmares? Who showed up when things broke? I wasn't building a case. I was telling the truth in advance. In the morning, we walked into the school together. My daughter held her head high, even though her hands trembled. I walked beside her, steady. The counselor, the principal, a woman who introduced herself as an advocate. They smiled politely. "Thank you for coming," the principal said. "We didn't have a choice," I replied calmly. They exchanged a look. The questions came carefully. How are things at home? Who handles daily routines? Are there conflicts? My daughter answered honestly. Yes, there were conflicts. Yes, things were tense. But no, the children are not unsafe. The advocate turned to me. "And you?" she asked. "I am the constant," I said. "I have been." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I replied, "when voices rise, I calm. When schedules break, I repair. When fear shows up, I stay." The room went quiet. They asked about my son-in-law. My daughter took a breath. "He raised his voice," she said. "He disrespected my mother, and when she stopped absorbing it, he panicked." The advocate nodded slowly. "And now?" she asked. "Now," my daughter said, "he's trying to punish us for not returning to silence." I felt something warm rise in my chest. Not pride. Relief. After the meeting, the advocate pulled us aside. "We'll monitor the situation," she said gently. "But from what we see, the children are stable." My daughter exhaled shakily. "Thank you," she whispered. I nodded once. That afternoon, my phone rang again. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. "This is Daniel," a man said. "I'm calling on behalf of your son-in-law." I closed my eyes. "Yes," I replied. "We're concerned about the influence you have over your daughter," he continued. "Concerned people usually ask questions," I replied, "not make accusations." He cleared his throat. "We're hoping to resolve this calmly." I laughed softly. "You started calmly," I said. "You escalated." Silence. "Your presence may complicate things," he said carefully. "There it is," I replied. "That word again." "What word?" he asked. "Presence," I said, "because my presence is the problem." He didn't deny it. That evening, my daughter finally broke down. "I feel like I'm choosing between my mother and my husband," she cried. I held her. "No," I said gently. "You're choosing between being erased and being whole." She sobbed harder. "I didn't know I married someone who would do this," she said. I kissed her hair. "You didn't," I said. "He became this when he lost control." The children sensed the heaviness. My granddaughter asked, "Are we moving again?" "No," I said. "You're staying where you're loved." She nodded and hugged me tightly. That night, after everyone was asleep, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from my son-in-law. "You think you've won. Tomorrow will change your mind." I stared at the screen. Not afraid. Ready. Because tomorrow would decide whether my strength would protect us, or whether he would push until everything broke. And I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer the woman he thought he could scare. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I woke up before the sun that morning. Not because I was afraid. Because I was ready. The message he sent the night before stayed in my mind, but it no longer shook me. Tomorrow will change your mind. I had spent most of my life changing my mind to keep peace, swallowing words, bending my back, making myself smaller so others could stand tall. That season was over. The house was quiet when I made breakfast. The children were still asleep. My daughter sat at the table, holding her mug with both hands, staring into it like it held answers. I didn't sleep, she said. Neither did I replied. She looked at me. What if he really tries to take them? She asked. I reached across the table and took her hand. Then he will have to face the truth, I said, and truth doesn't bend. She nodded slowly. By mid-morning, he arrived. Not shouting. Not angry. Smiling. That smile told me everything. He walked into my house like a man who believed he still had power. I just want to talk, he said. You've said that before, I replied. He glanced at my daughter. You don't have to be here for this, he told her. She didn't move. I'm staying, she said. That surprised him. He looked back at me. You've poisoned her, he said calmly. I smiled. No, I replied. I stopped protecting you from consequences. He sat down like he owned the place. I spoke to people, he said. They agree this situation isn't healthy. For whom? I asked. For the kids, he replied quickly. I leaned forward. Say it clearly, I said. For you. His jaw tightened. I'm their father, he snapped. And I am their safety, I replied. The room went silent. My daughter stood up then. Her voice shook, but she spoke. You took advantage of my mother, she said, and I let you. He stared at her. You're choosing her over me, he said. No, she replied. I'm choosing truth over fear. That was the moment he lost control. His face changed. Cold. You'll regret this, he said. I stood up slowly. No, I said, you will. He laughed. You think you're strong now. I met his eyes. I was strong when I stayed silent, I said. You just never deserved it. He looked around the house. This won't end how you think, he said. It already has, I replied. He stood abruptly. You'll hear from me, he said. I nodded. We always do, I replied. He left. Hard. But this time, the door didn't shake the house. Because the house was steady. After he left, my daughter collapsed into my arms. I was so afraid of him, she whispered. I know, I said. He built his comfort on your fear. She pulled back and looked at me. You were never weak, she said. I smiled softly. I was kind, I replied, and that confused him. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet for him. He expected panic. He expected chasing. He expected me to bend. None of that came. People stopped calling. Stories stopped spreading. Because when lies don't get fed, they starve. One afternoon, my daughter received a message. It wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It was short. I didn't think you'd actually stand up. She stared at the phone. That's it, she asked. I nodded. That's fear, I replied. Life slowly settled into something new. The children laughed again. The house felt lighter. My daughter began to breathe again. And me. I stood taller. Not louder. Not crueler. Just no longer invisible. One evening, my granddaughter climbed into my lap and asked, Grandma, why didn't you yell back? I smiled and brushed her hair. Because strength doesn't need to shout, I said. It just needs to stop kneeling. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. My daughter hugged me tightly that night. I thought kindness meant letting people do whatever they wanted, she said. No, I replied. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-harm. She nodded. I won't forget that, she said. My daughter and her husband took advantage of my kindness. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought patience meant permission. They were wrong. Because when kindness finally stands up, it doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It simply becomes strength. And that is what they fear most. Now that the house is quiet again, I finally hear myself think. For a long time, silence used to scare me. It felt like something was missing. Like if no one needed me, then maybe I didn't matter. But this silence is different. This silence feels earned. I sit in my chair by the window every evening now. I watch the light fade slowly, not rushing it away like I used to. I let the day finish at its own pace. I let myself breathe without guilt. And for the first time in years, I don't feel heavy. I feel whole. You see, I spent most of my life believing that love meant sacrifice. That being a good mother meant giving until there was nothing left. I thought if I just stayed quiet, stayed kind, stayed helpful, everything would work out. No one told me that kindness, without boundaries, teaches people how to use you. No one told me that silence can turn into a cage. I had to learn that the hard way. When I think back now, I see how slowly it happened. It didn't start with shouting. It didn't start with disrespect. It started with small things. A favor here. A night of babysitting there. A bill I paid without being asked. I told myself, they need me. I told myself, this is what family does. And before I knew it, my life wasn't mine anymore. I want to say something clearly, especially to anyone listening who feels like I once did. Being needed is not the same as being valued. When people only notice you when you are useful, they don't see you, they see your labor. And when you stop giving and they get angry, that tells you everything. I used to wonder why standing up felt so painful. Why my chest hurt when I finally spoke. Why my hands shook when I said no. Now I understand. I wasn't afraid of conflict. I was afraid of losing love. But love that only exists when you are silent is not love. It is control dressed up as comfort. My daughter once asked me, why didn't you say something sooner? I didn't have an easy answer then. But I do now. I didn't speak sooner because I was taught that strong women endure quietly. I was taught that complaining was weakness. That older women should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention they receive. That lesson was wrong. Strength is not how much you can endure. Strength is knowing when endurance is killing you. Strength is choosing yourself even when your voice shakes. Strength is letting people be disappointed so you don't disappear. Some people think boundaries are cruel. They say, you've changed. Yes, that's the point. Growth always looks like betrayal to people who benefited from the old version of you. I look at my grandchildren now, and I know I did the right thing. They don't see a tired woman anymore. They see a grandmother who laughs again, who stands tall, who says what she means. And one day, when they face the same kind of pressure in their own lives, they will remember this. They will remember that love does not require self-destruction. To my daughter, if she ever hears this again someday, I don't blame you. You were taught to survive, just like I was. But I am proud of you for choosing truth when it mattered. Proud of you for unlearning fear. Proud of you for breaking a cycle that was never yours to carry. And to anyone listening right now who feels small in their own home, who feels like their kindness has become an obligation, who feels like they are only loved when they are useful, please hear me. You are not too old to change. You are not selfish for wanting peace. You are not wrong for wanting respect. I used to believe my purpose was to hold everything together. Now I know my purpose is to live, to breathe, to exist without apology. And if that makes some people uncomfortable, that is not my burden anymore. If this story touched you, if you saw yourself in any part of it, I want you to do something for me. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Not because I need the numbers, but because stories like this remind us that we are not alone. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel. There are many more stories like this, stories of women who were told to stay quiet and chose to stand. Stories of strength that doesn't scream. Stories of power that doesn't beg. I am no longer the woman who bends to keep peace. I am the woman who stands to keep her soul. And if that makes someone afraid, then they were never ready for my strength. Thank you for listening. And remember this: kindness is beautiful, but strength is what protects it. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.